In 1997, NVIDIA was just a tiny company, and we were exactly 30 days from bankruptcy. We had built our first product, the NV1, and it was a complete failure. We had gambled on a technology that the industry decided not to follow, and overnight, our work became irrelevant. I remember the weight of that moment. I had to go to the CEO of Sega, who had contracted us to build their next console chip, and I had to tell him the truth. I had to tell him that our architecture was the wrong path, that we couldn't finish the job as promised, but that if he didn't pay us in full, NVIDIA would die. It was an act of total, painful humility. I asked for grace, and to my surprise, he gave it to us. That $5 million gave us the 6 months of life we needed to build the Riva 128. That experience didn't just save the company, it forged our soul. It taught us that you must be willing to admit you are wrong. You must be willing to abandon your past to save your future. And you must always operate with the urgency of someone who is 30 days from the end. That urgency is what brings me here today. We are at a crossroads in the history of human technology that is far more significant than the transition from 2D to 3D graphics. We are witnessing the end of an era that has defined our lives for 60 years. I am here to tell you that Moore's Law, as we knew it, is over. The period of time where we could simply wait for the semiconductor industry to give us faster, cheaper transistors to solve our problems has reached its physical limit. We have run out of gas in the world of general-purpose computing. The CPU, which has been the heart of every computer since the beginning of the digital age, can no longer keep up with the exponential demand for intelligence. We have hit a wall of physics, the power wall, the memory wall, and the thermal wall. To go further, we cannot just do the same things better. We have to do things that have never been done before. When I look at the state of the world today, I see a $1 trillion installed base of data centers that are essentially obsolete. They were built for a world of retrieval, where you ask a computer to find a piece of information that someone else already wrote. But we have entered the era of generation. We are moving from the era of information technology to the era of intelligence produced. In this new era, the computer is not just a tool, it is a factory. It is an AI factory. The raw material is data and electricity, and the finished product is intelligence. This intelligence is being manufactured at a scale that was unimaginable even 3 years ago. To power this, we had to reinvent the computer from the ground up, starting from first principles. First principles, thinking requires you to strip away all your assumptions. You don't ask, how do I make a faster server? You ask, what is the fundamental physics of the problem we are trying to solve? The problem is that the demand for tokens, the units of AI, is growing by a factor of 1,000 every few years, while the performance of the CPU is only growing by a few percent. That gap is a canyon. To bridge it, we pioneered accelerated computing. Accelerated computing is not just about a chip, it is a full-stack revolution. It is the GPU, it is the NVLink interconnect, it is the InfiniBand networking, and it is the millions of lines of code in our libraries like cuDNN and TensorRT. We had to rethink the entire stack because at the end of Moore's Law, the only way to get more performance is through extreme specialization and parallel processing. This is why Blackwell is so critical. Blackwell is the most ambitious project in the history of this company. It is a miracle of engineering that combines 208 billion transistors into a single integrated system. But more importantly, it is the first true platform for the generative AI era. We had to solve problems that were considered impossible. We had to find a way to make two massive dies act as one. We had to create a communication link that moves data at 1.8 terabytes per second. We had to design liquid-cooled racks that can handle the thermal density of a small city. We chose to solve these problems because nobody else wanted to touch them. We chose to suffer through the difficult engineering because that is where the value lives. At NVIDIA, the work of our lives is to build things that didn't exist before. We seek out the hardest problems because those are the only ones that matter. If it were easy, someone else would have done it already. This culture of seeking out the impossible is why we have a flat structure. I don't have a corner office. I don't have a mahogany desk. I spend my time in the trenches with our engineers. I have 50 direct reports because I want to hear the truth, not a filtered status report. In a world that is moving this fast, hierarchy is a bottleneck. We need everyone in the company to have the context of the CEO. We need every engineer to understand why a millisecond of latency in a switch matters to the future of a trillion parameter model. We operate as a single giant parallel processor, just like the chips we build. We often talk about run, don't walk. This isn't just a catchy phrase, it is a survival mandate. In a world where Moore's law has ended, the companies and nations that move the fastest to adopt accelerated computing will be the ones that define the future. The ones who walk will be left behind in a world of rising energy costs and stagnant productivity. The transition from general-purpose computing to accelerated computing is a trillion-dollar transition. It is the reindustrialization of the world. Every industry, from healthcare to manufacturing to finance, is being reinvented by AI. And because AI is software that writes itself, the speed of innovation is no longer limited by how fast humans can type code. It is limited only by how much compute we can provide. I want you to think about the first principles of your own work. If you are a scientist, if you are an engineer, if you are a creator, what would you do if you had 1,000 times more intelligence at your fingertips? You wouldn't just do your current job faster. You would do things you never dreamed were possible. You would simulate the entire climate of the Earth. You would discover new materials that solve our energy crisis. You would create personalized medicine for every human being on the planet. This is the promise of the era that comes after Moore's law. It is the era of the intelligence utility. But to get there, we have to be resilient. We have to be willing to fail. We have to be willing to look like fools for a decade, as we did with CUDA. For 10 years, the world told us that parallel computing was a niche, that nobody would ever use a GPU for anything other than games. We were exhausted. We were misunderstood. But we stayed the course because we knew the physics were on our side. We knew that the serial world was coming to an end. That resilience is our competitive advantage. We are a company that was built on the edge of a cliff, and we have never forgotten how it feels to be 30 days from the end. The demand for Blackwell is a signal. It is a signal that the world has finally realized that the old way of computing is over. The iPhone moment of AI happened with ChatGPT, but the industrial revolution of AI is happening now with Blackwell. We are building the engines for the next century, but building these engines is an Olympian task. It requires us to push the boundaries of material science, of electrical engineering, and of software complexity. And yes, it is exhausting. We are pushing ourselves to the very limit because we know that the window of opportunity is narrow. I see the fatigue in the industry. I see the cloud service providers and the developers struggling to keep up with the pace of change, but I also see the excitement. I see the potential for a world where we no longer have to spend our lives on the mundane and the repetitive. I see a world where we can finally focus on the impossible. The end of Moore's law is not a tragedy. It is an invitation. It is an invitation to reinvent the world. We are moving from a world where computers are tools to a world where computers are partners. A partner that can reason, a partner that can plan, a partner that can understand the laws of physics. This is the era of physical AI. It is the moment where the digital brain finally meets the physical body. This requires a level of compute that dwarfs everything we have built so far. It requires us to build digital twins of the world in our Omniverse platform so that AI can learn how to move, how to act, and how to interact with reality without the risks of the real world. Our roadmap is clear. We will continue to accelerate. We will continue to innovate at the speed of light. We will continue to build the full stack because that is the only way to solve the fundamental problems of our time. We are not just building chips, we are building the foundation of a new human era. An era where intelligence is abundant, green, and accessible to everyone, but we must move with urgency. We must run. The transition to accelerated computing is the most significant event in the history of technology. It is a total reinvention of the world's trillion-dollar infrastructure. And because this infrastructure is the foundation of our global economy, the way we build it will determine the future of our species. We have to be thoughtful, we have to be humble, and we have to be relentless. We have to remember the lessons of Denny's and the lessons of the Riva 128. We have to remember that character is built in the struggle, not in the success. I often think about my days as a dishwasher. It taught me that no job is beneath you. It taught me that if you do every job to the best of your ability, you learn something fundamental about the world. I approach my job as CEO the same way I approached washing dishes. I want to be the best in the world at it. I want to make sure that every part of this company is clean, efficient, and focused on the mission. That mission is to provide the world with the power to solve the unsolvable. We are at the beginning of the beginning. The end of Moore's Law is just the end of the first chapter. The second chapter is about to be written, and it will be written by those who have the courage to embrace the new reality of accelerated computing. It will be written by those who are willing to run toward the future, even when the path is difficult. It will be written by the pioneers who are building the AI factories of tomorrow. Tomorrow is not a distant point on a map. It is the result of the decisions we make today at this very moment in our labs and our data centers. The transition to these AI factories is not just about changing the hardware, it's about changing the very architecture of human productivity. In the old world, the world of Moore's Law, we were limited by the frequency of a single processor. In the new world, the world of accelerated computing, we are limited only by the scale of the system. This is the first principle of the new era. The computer is no longer a device. The data center is the computer. The entire network, the thousands of GPUs, the miles of optical fiber, the liquid cooling systems, they are all parts of a single, massive parallel organism designed to manufacture intelligence. We are seeing the rise of sovereign AI because of this. Every nation has realized that its data is its most precious natural resource. Your data is your culture, your history, your language, and your collective intelligence. You cannot export your raw data to have it refined in a foreign land and then buy the intelligence back. You must own your own AI. You must build your own AI factories. This is why the demand for Blackwell is so intense. It is the engine that allows a nation to claim its digital sovereignty. It is the machine that takes a nation's data and turns it into a national utility of intelligence. This is what comes after the era of the personal computer. It is the era of the national intelligence generator. I often think about how we manage to stay ahead during these shifts. People look at my 50 direct reports and they think I'm crazy, but they don't understand the first principle of speed. In a world where technology is moving at an exponential rate, you cannot afford the latency of a hierarchy. I don't want status reports. I don't want to know that a project is on track. I want context. I want to know the hardest problem you solved today. I want to know why the physics of a certain interconnect are pushing back. When you have a flat structure, everyone has the same context as the CEO. Everyone understands the mission. We don't spend time on the politics of management. We spend our time on the physics of innovation. This is the only way to survive when you are constantly operating 30 days from bankruptcy. This resilience is built into everything we do. When we were building the first versions of our software stack, we knew we were tackling problems that nobody else wanted to touch. We were building a bridge to a future that many people didn't believe in, but we had the desire for suffering. We were willing to endure the pain of being misunderstood because we knew that the serial world of the CPU was a dead end. We knew that the future belonged to the parallel world. And now, as we move into 2026 and beyond, that parallel world is becoming the foundation of everything. The next great frontier, the one that follows the generative AI revolution, is physical AI. This is the moment where the digital brain finally leaves the screen and enters the physical world. For decades, we have used computers to help us design things, but the computer itself didn't understand the physical world. It didn't understand gravity or friction or the properties of materials. But with physical AI, the computer becomes a participant in reality. It becomes the brain of a robot, a self-driving car, an autonomous factory. This is the ultimate impossible problem. To solve it, we had to build Omniverse, a digital twin of the world where AI can learn the laws of physics before it ever enters our reality. Physical AI is the revolution of 2026. It is the reindustrialization of the world. Imagine a world where every moving thing is autonomous, where robots work alongside humans in factories that are optimized in real time by a digital twin, where cars don't just follow a GPS, but understand the intentions of every pedestrian and every other vehicle on the road. This requires a level of reasoning time compute that general purpose computing could never provide. It requires the power of Blackwell. We are building the reasoning engines that allow a robot to not just follow a script, but to think, to plan, and to adapt to the messiness of the real world. I remember back at Denny's cleaning tables. I learned that you have to do the job in front of you as well as it can be done. If you are cleaning a table, it should be the cleanest table in the restaurant. If you are building a GPU, it should be the most efficient engine of intelligence in the world. There is no such thing as a small detail. The physics of a single transistor matter just as much as the architecture of a global data center. This focus on first principles is what allows us to bridge the gap between the end of Moore's law and the beginning of the age of intelligence. We seek out the hardest problems because we know that the world needs solutions that don't exist yet. We are working on climate simulation at a scale that was previously impossible. We are working on drug discovery that will turn years of laboratory work into weeks of digital simulation. We are doing this because we believe that the work of our lives should be to build things that matter. We aren't interested in incrementalism. We are interested in the iPhone moment for every single industry on the planet. But to achieve this, you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to look at your most successful product and realize it's no longer the future. You have to be willing to cannibalize your own business to build the next thing. This is the humility of innovation. It's the realization that you are never safe. You are always 30 days from being obsolete if you stop running. That is why I tell everyone, run, don't walk. If you walk, you are overtaken. If you run, you define the pace of the world. The transition from the CPU era to the accelerated era is the most profound shift in the history of human technology. It is a total reinvention of the computer. And because the computer is the tool we use to solve all other problems, this shift will accelerate the solving of every other problem. We are entering an era of abundance, an era where the marginal cost of intelligence is so low that we can finally address the challenges of energy, disease, and poverty. But this abundance is not a gift, it is a construction. It is something we are building with every line of code and every rack of Blackwell. We have reached the logical conclusion of the first 60 years of computing. The old path is closed, the physics have spoken, but the new path is wider and more full of potential than anything we have seen before. We are moving from a world where we write software to a world where data writes the software. We are moving from a world where we use tools to a world where we work with partners. And as we scale this intelligence, we have to stay grounded in our first principles. We have to stay humble. We have to remember that we are here to serve the researchers, the developers, and the pioneers who are building the future on our platform. When I look at the road ahead, I don't see a finish line. I see a continuous cycle of reinvention. We will continue to push the boundaries of what is possible. We will continue to solve the impossible problems of thermal management, of power delivery, and of software complexity. We will continue to build the AI factories of the future, and we will do it with the same urgency we had in that Denny's booth in 1993. We are still that company. We are still 30 days from bankruptcy. We are still running like our lives depend on it. The end of Moore's law is not the end of progress. It is the beginning of a new kind of progress, a progress that is defined by architecture, by systems, and by the massive parallelism of the GPU. This is the world we are building, a world where intelligence is a utility as ubiquitous and as essential as electricity. And as we build this utility, we invite you to join us. We invite you to bring your hardest problems, your most ambitious dreams, and your most difficult challenges to our platform. Let's solve them together. We are at the dawn of the most transformative era in human history. The new industrial revolution is not just a headline. It is a reality that is being built right now in every Blackwell rack we ship. It is a reality that is being trained in every Omniverse simulation. It is a reality that is being realized by every developer who uses CUDA to push the boundaries of science. The future is not something that happens. It is something that we create, and we are creating it at the speed of light. As we look toward 2026 and the arrival of physical AI, I want you to remember the lessons of the past. Remember that character is built in the struggle. Remember that resilience is more important than success. And remember that the work of your life is to build something that didn't exist before. We are all pioneers in this new landscape. There are no maps, but there are first principles. Let them guide you. Let them give you the courage to tackle the problems that everyone else says are impossible. The logic of our mission is irrefutable. Intelligence is the ultimate multiplier of human potential. By making intelligence abundant and accelerated, we are giving humanity the power to define its own future. This is the promise of the era after Moore's law. This is the promise of NVIDIA. We are proud to be the foundation for your innovation. We are proud to be the engine of the new industrial revolution, and we will never stop running. The world is moving faster than ever. The demand for intelligence is insane, but our resolve is even stronger. We will continue to innovate. We will continue to suffer through the difficult engineering, and we will continue to provide the world with the power it needs to solve the unsolvable. The future is here, and it is parallel. It is accelerated. It is generative. Run, don't walk. Run toward the future you want to build. Run toward the impossible. Run toward the next era of human intelligence. Before I leave you, I want to thank you for being a part of this incredible journey. If you found this vision for the future after Moore's Law inspiring, please subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. It helps us share this message of accelerated computing with visionaries all over the world. And please, if you have questions about Blackwell, about the end of the CPU era, or about how to build your own AI factory, leave them in the comments below. I promise you, I will be reading them, and I will respond to your questions as quickly as I can. I want to know what you are building. I want to know how we can help you achieve the impossible. The logical conclusion is this: in a world where the laws of physics have ended the old way of scaling, the only way forward is through the total transformation of the computer. That transformation is NVIDIA. That transformation is you. Run, don't walk. Thank you.